In the quiet suburbs of Hong Kong, a middle-class family of 4 lived a life marked by simplicity and peace. Little did they know, their tranquil existence was about to be shattered forever. One fateful night, the family vanished without a trace. Friends and neighbors were left in a state of confusion, unsure if the family was alive or dead. As the police began their investigation, a terrifying truth emerged. The entire family had met a brutal end within the confines of their own home. The question loomed large. Who could commit such a horrific act? What dark motivations could drive someone to slaughter an entire family, including innocent children? Join us as we delve deeper into this chilling case with Crime Documentary Files. The victims, a family of 4, included Tan Cheng-wei, a 43-year-old father, Tang Anyi, his 34-year-old wife, their 10-year-old daughter, Tian Xiaoan, and the youngest 7-year-old Tian Xiaoyin. The family resided in a modest tin-roofed house in Pingsha Village, Takuling. Cheng-wei and Anyi enjoyed stable employment. Cheng-wei had dedicated over 2 decades as an office worker at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, while Anyi contributed her efforts at a stationery supply company. Though they did not possess great wealth, the family thrived in their happiness and harmony. Yet, July 5, 2009, marked a tragic turning point, one that would erase their idyllic family portrait forever. On that night, all 4 members disappeared without a trace. As dawn broke on July 6th, a seemingly ordinary Monday transformed into an unsettling mystery. The summer vacation was approaching, yet the 2 sisters, Tian Xiaoan and Tian Xiaoyin, found themselves lost in an unexpected dilemma. Despite the strange circumstances, they were compelled to attend school. Cheng-wei and Anyi followed their daily routine, preparing to drop their daughters off at elementary school before heading to work. Cheng-wei would typically begin his workday at the Chinese University after dropping off Anyi at her company. However, that day, both Cheng-wei and Anyi failed to show up for work. Their phones went unanswered, raising alarm bells among their colleagues. Concern grew as the morning hours passed, for both Cheng-wei and Anyi were known for their reliability, never missing work without prior notice. Colleagues continuously attempted to reach them, fearing the worst. Finally, around 1 p.m., a call was answered, but it was not by Cheng-wei. Instead, a man with a rural accent responded. When asked about the family's well-being, he claimed they had gone to Dongguan for a vacation and abruptly hung up. This response raised suspicions in Cheng-wei's colleague. If a vacation had indeed been planned, why had no leave been requested ahead of time? Cheng-wei was known for his dedication and meticulous planning. The colleague, troubled by the peculiar circumstances, shared the unsettling information with others. What had truly happened to Tan Cheng-wei, Tang Anyi, and their children? The investigation was just beginning. After deliberating, it became clear to everyone involved that the circumstances were far from straightforward, prompting them to alert the police for assistance. Had a tragedy befallen the family? And who was the mysterious man who had answered Tan Cheng-wei's phone? Following the report, the police swiftly commenced their investigation in Pingsha Village. However, the village's vastness made pinpointing the Tan family's residence a challenging task. It was only after consulting several local residents that investigators finally succeeded in locating the house. Upon their arrival, the police were struck by the isolation of Tan Cheng-wei's home. Situated in a secluded area, the nearest establishment was a used computer recycling facility, and further away lived an elderly woman who resided alone. The scene was eerily quiet. The first detail that caught the investigators' attention was the sight of Tan Cheng-wei's car, still parked in its designated spot, hinting that he might still be inside the house. They decided to make attempts to contact anyone within. As they called out in hopes of reaching the family, the silence was deafening. No response echoed back. During their investigation, the police spotted a man nearby and approached him to inquire about his identity and reason for being in the area. The man identified himself as Wang, a local from Pingsha Village. He informed the officers that the Tan family was on vacation in Dongguan, which explained their absence. When pressed for how he was aware of their whereabouts, he claimed that a cousin of the homeowners had informed him and instructed him to relay this information to the police. Sensing something was amiss, the police urged Mr. Wang to lead them to Tan Cheng-wei's cousin. Mr. Wang, a local resident, proved to be a valuable source, guiding the police to Tan Cheng-wei's cousin. The cousin's residence, conveniently situated just across the road, was quickly located. His name was Xu Shangqi, and he was visiting from Zhongshan, Guangdong, on a tourist visa. When questioned about the whereabouts of Tan Chengwei's family, Xu Shangqi disclosed that on July 4th, they had returned to mainland China to address some financial matters. Generally, the family would return before their children's school day began, indicating they should be back the following day. Tan Chengwei had instructed his cousin that if he failed to return on time and colleagues inquired about his absence, he should state that urgent business had taken him to Dongguan. Notably, the voice that had answered Tan Chengwei's phone belonged to Shangqi himself. After processing this revelation, the police asked him to guide them into Tan Chengwei's house. His demeanor remained cooperative, yet tinged with anxiety as he repeatedly inquired about his cousin's condition. Upon entering the house, the police initially found nothing out of the ordinary. It appeared to be a typical family home. However, with careful scrutiny, they uncovered bloodstains in various spots on the living room wall adjacent to the bed. The presence of these stains raised immediate suspicions that something catastrophic had taken place. Without hesitation, investigators called in the homicide squad to take command of the scene. The investigation team meticulously combed through the entire tin house, leaving no stone unturned. Simultaneously, they dispatched officers to Ini's workplace and the children's school, seeking to confirm whether the family had indeed gone to work and school as usual. Another critical line of inquiry was to scrutinize immigration records. This investigation aimed to verify the claim made by Tan Chengwei's cousin that the entire family had returned to mainland China. To their dismay, the police soon discovered that the last person to have seen Tan Chengwei was his mother, who, although residing in a nursing home nearby, did not live with them. On the morning of July 5th, Tan Chengwei had visited his mother at the nursing home, departing at 11 o'clock a.m. This revelation suggested that he and his family could not possibly have returned to China on July 4th. As the police continued their search of Tan Chengwei's home, they stumbled upon a disturbing scene. Bloodstains marked the walls of the living room. In the bedroom, they found a blood-stained women's shirt and a rubber hose, also smeared with blood, alongside a Hong Kong identity card and a return card for Ness's hometown. Furthermore, immigration records revealed that none of the 4 members of Tan Chengwei's family had left Hong Kong. At this juncture, police made the decision to arrest Xu Shangqi, propelled by mounting suspicions of his involvement in the family's disappearance. Their suspicion intensified when investigators noted wounds on Xu Shangqi's fingers. In a hurried explanation, he claimed these injuries were the result of helping his cousin with home repairs, caused by nails and screws. Yet he maintained that Tan Chengwei had informed him of their return to China. However, due to the overwhelming evidence at the scene, police found it increasingly difficult to believe his account. Xu Shangqi was swiftly transported to the station for questioning, where his uncooperative demeanor only heightened the tension. He professed ignorance of the situation, expressing only concern for his cousin's family, remaining tight-lipped about any details of the incident. In light of his reticence, the police were compelled to reassess their investigative approach. They hoped to uncover the whereabouts of Tan Chengwei's entire family through alternative methods, with each passing hour amplifying fears for the 4 victims' safety. One of the most effective strategies in tracking missing persons involves monitoring their financial activities. The police aimed to pinpoint the location of Tan Chengwei and his family. Amidst their investigation, a significant lead emerged. At precisely 3:02 p.m. on July 5th, an attempt was made to withdraw funds using NES's Visa credit card at an ATM located at Shengshui Station. However, the transaction failed due to an incorrect password, resulting in the card being retained by the machine. Reviewing the ATM's security footage, the detectives were taken aback to discover that the individual attempting the withdrawal was none other than Tan Chengwei's cousin. Furthermore, the investigation team found both Tan Chengwei and NES's mobile phones at the cousin's residence, deepening the enigma surrounding the family's disappearance. The evidence gathered played a pivotal role in shaping the investigative narrative surrounding the case. As detectives pieced together the available clues, they concluded that if Tan Chengwei's family had indeed encountered foul play, the tragic incident must have transpired during a critical window of time. This dark episode was believed to have occurred between 11 o'clock a.m. on July 5th, shortly after Tan Chengwei visited his mother, and 3:02 p.m. the same afternoon, when his cousin, Xu Shangqi, used Tang Anyi's credit card. This narrow time frame of less than 4 hours quickly became the focal point of the investigation. The questions loomed large. What actions could Xu Shangqi have taken during this fleeting period? What fate had befallen the family during those harrowing hours? By analyzing the timeline from when Tan Cheng-wei left the nursing home to return home, investigators estimated that if the family of 4 met with misfortune, it likely occurred between noon and 2 p.m. Could Xu Shangqi truly orchestrate the disappearance of 4 individuals in such a brief 2-hour span? Before delving deeper into the investigation, it was essential to understand the background of Xu Shangqi. At 42 years old, he hailed from Huangpu town in Jiangshan. He was married in China and had a son and daughter. In his home country, Xu Shangqi primarily worked as a construction worker and motorcycle taxi driver. Since 2003, he had frequently applied for 2-way visas to Hong Kong, claiming he wanted to visit relatives. However, when he found himself in Hong Kong, he earned around 300 Hong Kong dollars, equivalent to about 38 USD, each day performing house repairs. Xu Shangqi's life in China revolved around construction work and driving motorcycles for hire. His frequent applications for visas to Hong Kong under the guise of familial visits raised suspicions. In Hong Kong, he lived temporarily at his uncle's residence in Pingche Village, where he would eventually be discovered by police. Yet it was evident that Xu Shangqi's true purpose for visiting Hong Kong was not to reconnect with family, but to engage in illegal work. The reason for his journey was tied to Tan Cheng-wei, who had inherited a tin house from his father and sought to renovate it to make it more habitable. In discussions between the 2 cousins, it was agreed that Tan Cheng-wei would pay Xu Shangqi for his labor. This arrangement allowed Xu Shangqi to apply for 2-way visas to Hong Kong, staying for periods that ranged from 2 weeks to 3 months. Even though the daily wage of 300 Hong Kong dollars was below average in the bustling city, it was a substantial improvement compared to the meager earnings of a few dollars a day that Xu Shangqi made in China. Tan Cheng-wei recognized his cousin's lack of motivation back home, having seen him frequently avoid work. He believed that if Xu Shangqi came to Hong Kong, he would be forced to focus on earning a living. Tan Cheng-wei understood that his cousin was in the midst of building a house and required a significant sum of money to complete the project. If Xu Shangqi could find employment in Hong Kong, he might earn several $1,000s monthly towards his construction efforts. At the same time, while Xu Shangqi was busy with his own house project, his family was left without shelter due to the demolition of their old residence. In a show of kindness, Tan Cheng-wei offered his cousin's entire family a place to stay in his ancestral home in their hometown. The relationship between the 2 cousins seemed solid, leaving investigators to ponder if they had misjudged Shangqi's motives. When the police presented evidence of Shangqi withdrawing money from his sister-in-law Ini's credit card at the ATM, an unsettling silence hung in the air. It was then that Shangqi, previously reticent, finally acknowledged his connection to the mysterious disappearance of his cousin Tan Cheng-wei's family. As the police confronted Shangqi with the evidence of his ATM withdrawal, his silence shattered. He admitted, albeit reluctantly, his involvement in the troubling case surrounding his cousin Tan Cheng-wei's family. In a moment of chilling clarity, he implored the officers, expressing remorse. "I accidentally killed them. Please give me a chance." Yet the police, bound by duty, were unable to grant him mercy. Instead, they pressed him for answers. "Where is your cousin's family now?" they demanded. However, whether it was the weight of his confession or a sudden surge of defiance, Shangqi refused to divulge any further information. Consequently, the police were left with no choice but to search the vicinity of Tan Cheng-wei's home for clues, desperate to uncover the truth behind the family's disappearance. They relied solely on Shangqi's unilateral confession, uncertain if the family had merely vanished, or if something far more sinister had transpired. Even in the bleak scenario of foul play, the absence of bodies posed a significant hurdle for prosecution. After enduring over 10 hours of grueling interrogation, it was not until 4 a.m. on July 7th that Shangqi finally unraveled the grim reality. He confessed that he had taken the lives of his cousin's entire family and had buried their bodies in the expansive garden of their home. The police, now armed with this harrowing revelation, swiftly called upon firefighters to assist in the excavation of the site where Shangqi had concealed the remains. In a case reminiscent of other cement-related murders, the hardness of the concrete made the recovery of the bodies a painstaking endeavor. They initiated the process by drilling through the surface layer of cement, employing smaller tools to meticulously extract the soil beneath. It soon became evident that Shang-Chi had not fabricated his story. To their horror, the police uncovered a child's hair amidst the debris. After hours of relentless digging, they finally unearthed the first victim, a young girl. Ultimately, the arduous task consumed a staggering 13 hours, revealing the bodies of all 4 victims. The remains were stacked in a grave that measured 5 feet deep, 8 feet long, and 8 feet wide. At the bottom lay Tan Cheng-Wei, followed by Tang Anyi, and resting atop them were their 2 daughters. The condition of the bodies was nothing short of tragic. Once retrieved, forensic experts conducted examinations that unveiled the brutal truth. Tan Cheng-Wei's body bore the scars of a violent death, with dozens of stab wounds marking his demise. A total of 65 stab wounds riddled his torso, primarily concentrated on his chest, abdomen, and back. Additionally, 13 cuts marred his arms and legs, including 3 deep gashes on his palms, a haunting testament to his desperate struggle for survival. In a horrifying scene, the victims were discovered bound together in a grotesque display of violence. The father's wrists were cruelly tied to the mother's neck with 2 yellow cords. Additional metal wire held her back tightly, while her toes were similarly restrained. A white tank top was stuffed into her mouth, and multiple layers of different materials enveloped her head, creating a suffocating shroud. The innermost layer consisted of a blue sweater, which was tightly wrapped with metal wire and tape around her mouth and neck. Encasing this was a black plastic bag, further secured with metal wire, adding to the layers of confinement. The outermost layer was a white plastic bag, wrapped yet again with an electrical cord. The father's head bore 6 gruesome wounds, inflicted by blunt force trauma, yet these injuries were not the cause of his death. Tragically, he succumbed to suffocation. The older daughter, Tian Xiaowan, was similarly bound. Tape wrapped tightly around her chin and neck, while a long wound marred her face. Her arms were cruelly twisted behind her back, leaving her in a state of extreme distress. A yellow cord encircled her neck, while her toes were also tied with the same cord, distorting her body in a horrifying manner. The youngest daughter, Tian Xiaoyin, was found placed in a plastic bag which was secured tightly with a yellow cord. When authorities discovered Tian Xiaoyin, she was curled up within the plastic bag, her head positioned at the bottom, her eyes sealed shut with tape. The tape extended from her eyes down to her throat and lower jaw. Her hands were bound behind her back, and her legs were restrained with a yellow cord. The cause of death for Tian Xiaoyin mirrored that of her mother: suffocation. The chilling question loomed: why did Xu Shangqi turn so violently against his cousin's family, despite Tan Cheng-Wei's kindness towards him? He displayed no mercy, even towards the 2 children, both under 10 years old. How could he single-handedly kill 4 innocent lives? The timeline was staggering. From the moment Tan Cheng-Wei visited his mother to the police arresting Xu Shangqi, only 25 to 26 hours had elapsed. Was it truly possible for Xu Shangqi to commit such horrific acts, killing, binding bodies, digging holes, pouring cement, burying them and cleaning the scene, all within that brief window? After leading investigators to the location where he buried his cousin's family, Xu Shangqi began to unravel the details of his confession. He admitted to having a relationship with his sister-in-law, Tang Anyi, claiming they had maintained proper boundaries, which included only hugging and kissing. Yet beneath the surface, he may have harbored unspoken feelings for her over the years. About a year prior to the tragic incident, their affair was accidentally discovered by his niece, who caught them in a compromising situation at the house. Denise reported the encounter to her father, but both Xu Shangqi and Tang Anyi denied it. Although Tan Cheng-Wei had no evidence to substantiate the claim, he found it hard to believe, assuming the children might have misinterpreted the situation and allowed Xu Shangqi to continue living and working at their home. However, following that incident, the dynamics between the 2 shifted dramatically. On the fateful day of the murders, upon returning home from visiting his mother, Tan Cheng-Wei confronted Xu Shangqi, demanding to know why he would betray him by seducing his wife. Tension escalated rapidly as the argument spiraled out of control. In a moment of unrestrained fury, Shangqi seized a knife, plunging it into his cousin, Tan Cheng-Wei, until he lay motionless. By that grim moment, Tan Cheng-Wei had ceased to breathe. With chaos still ringing in his ears, Shangqi sought out his sister-in-law, Tang Anyi, who was obliviously cooking in the kitchen. He approached her, intent on explaining the horrific events that had just unfolded, but her emotional response was immediate and explosive, filled with screams and frantic gestures. In a misguided attempt to calm her, he tied her up, desperation driving his actions. However, Tang Anyi's cries drew the attention of her two daughters, who burst onto the scene. The sight of their mother restrained ignited their terror, prompting them to scream and flee to their room. Fear enveloped the young sisters as they shut the door behind them. The relentless screams threatened to expose his dark secret. Driven by panic, Shang-Chi broke down the door and bound the children, silencing them in a frantic effort to keep his actions hidden. One can scarcely fathom the horror that gripped the sisters in that confined space. Despite the unfolding nightmare, Shang-Chi maintained that he never intended to harm his sister-in-law or her daughters. He insisted that Tan Cheng-Wei's death was the result of a fleeting moment of rage. Returning to the scene of his crime, a chilling realization struck him. He had neglected to silence the victims. By the time he registered this oversight, it was tragically too late. All three had lost their lives. Panic surged through him as he pondered his next move, only to be distracted by the simmering pot on the stove. Overcome by hunger, he sat down to eat, momentarily distracted from the horror he had unleashed. After his meal, he contemplated the grim task ahead, burying all 4 bodies. He set to work, digging a substantial hole in the garden. Hours passed as he toiled, and once satisfied with his effort, he cleaned himself and the scene of the bloodshed. On October 28, 2010, the courtroom became the stage for this tragic saga as the case officially commenced. Shang-Chi faced 4 counts of murder. The prosecutor was quick to challenge Shang-Chi's narrative about his relationships with the victims, questioning the credibility of his claims. After the bloody events, Shang-Chi returned to his uncle's home, seeking refuge. The following morning, on July 6th, he ordered cement, even paying extra for a swift delivery. His first act was to dispose of Tan Cheng-Wei's body, tossing it into the hole he had dug. Once the bodies were hidden, he layered them with sand and finally encased everything in cement. Throughout this grim task, the phones of Tan Cheng-Wei and Tang Anyi rang incessantly, a haunting reminder of the lives he had extinguished. By 1 p.m., with the gruesome scene seemingly resolved, he concocted an excuse and responded to his cousin's phone call, deceitfully claiming that the family had traveled to Dongguan. This was the crux of Shang-Chi's confession to the police, yet this account represented merely Shang-Chi's side of the story. The true narrative awaited validation through diligent police investigation. As the court proceedings unfolded, evidence presented by the prosecutor would seek to unravel the discrepancies in Shang-Chi's version of events 1 year after the tragedy. The prosecutor argued that Shang-Chi's tale was nothing more than a facade to mask his malevolence. In reality, the underlying motive for his heinous actions was greed, as the prosecutor revealed the financial incentives that drove him to commit such a horrific crime. The prosecutor dismantled Shang-Chi's narrative, arguing that his claims leading to the murders were nothing more than an elaborate fabrication to conceal his true motives. The underlying reason for the crime was eerily clear: financial gain. Shang-Chi had been in dire financial straits, attempting to build a house back home. When his cousin, Tan Cheng-Wei, refused his pleas for money, anger consumed him, culminating in a senseless act of violence and theft. After executing his cousin's entire family, he callously stole his sister-in-law's credit card and 2 mobile phones. Subsequent police investigations revealed a trove of stolen electronic devices stashed in a black box on Shang-Chi's bicycle, including a PSP gaming device. Also discovered were a digital camera, an HD receiver, surveillance equipment, and a recording device, each piece of evidence underscoring that Shang-Chi's motivations were driven by a cold desire for monetary gain. The prosecutor argued that the manner in which the 3 female victims were bound demonstrated a calculated intention to end their lives, revealing Shang-Chi's murderous intent. Faced with these damning allegations, Shang-Chi maintained that the deaths of his sister-in-law and 2 nieces were mere accidents, insisting they were still alive when he tied them up. Yet he later admitted to using his sister-in-law's credit card to withdraw cash, a contradiction that weighed heavily against him. Throughout the trial, Shang-Chi clung to the notion that he had genuine feelings for his sister-in-law, describing their relationship in sentimental terms. He openly praised Tang Anyi, remarking on her beauty and feminine charm, as if attempting to humanize himself amidst the horror of his actions. He recounted how, in the 3 to 4 years leading up to the tragic incident, He had visited Hong Kong over 100 times. He claimed that Tang Anyi would often take time off work deliberately, allowing them to engage in secret relations when Tan Cheng-wei was away. In a startling revelation, Shenki claimed he initially had no intention of stealing his cousin's credit card or property. He argued that his cousin owed him 80,000 Hong Kong dollars, roughly $10,200 US, for house repairs. It was only after the brutal killings that the thought of stealing crossed his mind. In the courtroom, Shenki, through his defense attorney, voiced his grievances about the treatment he received following his arrest. He recounted being handcuffed and confined in a room at the police station before his formal arrest. During the interrogation, he described a harrowing ordeal. He was stripped of his clothing, assaulted in sensitive areas, had his hair yanked, and was beaten. Shenki's defense lawyer highlighted these abuses to paint a grim picture of his client's treatment. In a particularly degrading incident, when Shenki requested water at the police station, officers responded by spitting into his water bottle. One officer even remarked that he did not deserve to drink. Shenki later revealed that the police confirmed he had only taken 6 days off work for personal reasons. After nearly a month of trial, the case finally reached its verdict on November 23, 2010. The jury delivered a unanimous decision, finding Shenki guilty of 3 counts of murder out of the 4 charges, including the murders of Tang Anyi, Tian Xiaoyin, and the younger daughter, Tian Xiaoyin. The jury's decision was a grim affirmation of the prosecution's position. The evidence pointed unambiguously toward Shenki's guilt in the deaths of his entire family, casting a shadow on any claims of accidental death. In the aftermath of the tragedy, the investigation revealed a disturbing truth. While Shenki was found guilty of manslaughter in the death of the older daughter, Tian Xiaowan, it was noted that her cause of death was not classified as murder, but rather suffocation, a grim distinction among the 4 victims. This horrifying case paints a vivid picture of the cruel and inhumane nature of the perpetrator, Xu Shangqi. Despite being extended trust and generosity by his cousin, Tan Cheng-wei, who provided him with employment and accommodation, Xu Shangqi repaid that kindness with betrayal. In a heart-wrenching act, he murdered his cousin's entire family in a brutal fashion. The pain is further amplified by the tragic loss of 2 innocent children, Tian Xiaoyin and Tian Xiaowan, both under the age of 10. This case serves as a painful reminder of the dangers of misplaced trust. It stands as a stark warning about the potential threats that can arise from even the closest of relationships. This concludes our exploration of the case. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in our next video.